Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Chris and Andre Show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chris and Andre Show. We're glad you joined us. It's been another crazy dope, last week into this week. So please always check in every week. We're on YouTube, SoundCloud right now. We're going to talk about that later at the end of the podcast. Google Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, even with the Rogan Meister, we're still there. And pretty much anywhere you're listening to a podcast, you can always check us out on YouTube. If you're checking us out on YouTube, please like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and we're always going to try to do our best to deliver some of the best, honest conversations. And I'm not going to say best anymore. I think mentally there was a ding in my head. So anyway, I'm Andre.
I'm Chris. And
as well, this new thing we call quick hits. Let's get into it.
Quick hits.
So what we're seeing, we've been talking about this for a while now, just the real estate market in general. There are bulk buyers buying, the headline is bulk buyers draining some property values in the Triad, which is the Greensboro area of North Carolina. I've been talking about this for a minute now, even before the podcast. And the reality, the stark reality, is that investors have been buying homes for a long time. This article says it's been happening more recently in the last 2 or 3 years. The reality, it's been happening I'd say around 2010, or it started to ramp up in 2010. I can attest that I would be selling that home and you'd be surprised that it wasn't a person that owned it, but it'd be a company. So it's going to potentially tank the value that you have in a home. It could be a repeat of that housing bubble.
So I think it's really interesting. You're talking about 2010 when it really ramped up, and I immediately thought, well, wasn't it just 2008 when we had this horrible housing bubble crisis? And immediately trust funds were like, why don't we just make a trust where, basically a fund that we can dump real estate investments into. So I guess they're called REITs, right?
Yeah.
Real Estate Investment Trust. And I was talking to my dad a little bit about it today. And so it just seems like a really bad idea in general. And it's creating a lot of problems for the people that live in these communities because the REITs are not obviously interested in actually maintaining the home or doing any sort of things that are in line with the HOAs or anything like that. And as you mentioned, it's doing two things. One, it's driving property values down in neighborhoods where these places are being bought, but at the same time, it's somehow driving the buying prices up because these REITs are going in and dumping cash to basically buy up these pieces of real estate, expecting the value ultimately to increase over time, regardless of where the market currently stands.
Yeah, on the buy side, you can actually, it doesn't matter, right? So that's why you're seeing that one video we saw that went viral of a $300,000 house in Wake County with stacks of cars and people there. So on the buy side, they have the deep pockets to basically say, oh, we're going to pay you 40%. So what that theoretically does, a good appreciation would be between 5 and 8% a year in a hot area. It probably spikes you at 15 to 20%. Well, most people they haven't lived in their home long enough to where they can watch equity go up and down. So it's a mess. We should not be doing this. And I don't want to dig in. I don't want to keep pulling that thread because that will be this entire episode. But if we're talking about real talk, people should basically, if you want something to change, go to your local and state officials, and in your HOAs if you live in one of those communities, and that now is the time to put the brakes on these things. Now is the time.
Get to it before this stuff gets out of control. I mean, it's probably already is, but before things get even worse.
Right. Anyway, next.
Ooh, that was a different transition.
Yeah,
Oh, I like that one.
Drop a little
Okay,
bass
you
in
like it.
there.
All right. We'll use that one from now on. So yeah, this next article comes from dig.com. You might remember that from our E-Area days. It was a popular site. They kind of have spread out and are covering a lot of different stuff now, but this one article was talking about the happiest cities in the U.S. The United States, I think, only ranks like 14th in the world in terms of happiest countries, but I was amazed at the number of cities in Southern and Central California that were on the list of happiest places to live. Like, I understand you got nice weather, but you got to deal with ridiculous housing prices, ridiculous utility rates, awful traffic. Like, what on earth is there to be happy about living in California?
So, or Sacramento and San Diego on that list?
No, I don't think so, but it was like Irvine, which is right outside of LA. LA. There was San Jose, which is not that far from Sacramento. So it seemed really random. I know that West Virginia ranked as one of the least happy, like some city in West Virginia ranked as one of the least happy cities, and Wisconsin, a city in Wisconsin ranked it was Wyoming, for the most hours worked by people on average. Yeah, I mean, some interesting stats. Like, if you get a chance, check it out. I'll throw a link into the description here. If you live in one of those really happy cities and you have a reason for it, like, hit us up. Let us know, because I certainly don't get it. I didn't see any North Carolinas on there. So, I mean, maybe I'm not happy enough.
I'll tell you this, my son lives in San Diego, and he loves it, and it's because he's a single young professional. So, yeah, San Diego, if it's on that list, it deserves to be on that list. If you're a single young professional. Anyway, next.
If you meet that specific criteria.
GOP senators decide to defend the fact that they don't have the common sense to not put President Zelensky's pictures of him on Twitter as they're doing that, like, low-key, top-secret phone call. I guess they're like clout chasers now. I mean, it's they obstruct everything else, but it's like the one thing right now they can say is we stand with Ukraine. The irony to that is, what does that really mean in the big scheme of things?
The other irony is, like, where was that support 3 years ago during the impeachment?
You just stole my next train of thought.
I'm sorry. But, I mean, like, 2019, they're sitting there having an impeachment trial, and every single one of them is like, he didn't do anything wrong, and withholding, aid. And now they're complaining that Biden didn't do enough early on to support Ukraine. And it's like, you literally can't have it both ways, GOP. I mean, you have to actually stay on whatever side of the line you draw. You can't just keep jumping over it. Like,
you can quote me on this, and this might be my new catchphrase when it comes to the GOP. Yo, get off Biden's dick. He's not perfect, but you guys are riding hard, yo. Like, you guys are riding hard. You're a straight D riding right now, so just get off dude's dick.
So, anyway, like, two other things I had to add on this real quick. First, Marco Rubio waited less than 2 minutes to grab a screenshot and post it, right? So, like,
so you know what you're doing, though. I didn't want to call out their names because they shouldn't get that much love. We know Marco Rubio.
I'll bleep it out.
Okay. No, don't worry about it.
No, but, like, so, dude, like, not even 2 minutes into it. And really, like you said, they're chasing clout. I don't even think it's clout. It's relevancy. Like, they've recognized at this point they are completely irrelevant when it comes to national politics. And why would it matter to their constituents that they're on a call with Zelensky at that point, right? Like, there was absolutely. And then the last thing that why on earth didn't you take it down? Like, when they asked you to not share anything, even if it was after you'd already done it, wouldn't you immediately go, oh, I guess I should probably go take that down? But no, now they want to be like, it wasn't that top secret. There were like 300 people on that call,
You're giving them way too much credit, man. They're straight dick riding. There's the on the outside of that, you've got people like and I'm not going to call out their names because they don't deserve even my acknowledgement. But they're trying to take credit for infrastructure rebuilds and all these other things that they voted against.
Yep.
Just because it's time for midterm. So
Yeah.
All I can say to the GOP is, and I'm not like I'm not trying to pick sides here because I think the president has some flaws, but you guys are straight dick riding. So anyway, next.
I was really disappointed by this next article. Jeff Bezos has his Blue Origin, whatever it is, stupid space program, to send really rich people to float for a few hours or a couple of minutes and then fall down. Pete Davidson apparently has decided that he's going to get in on this now. I guess that they met while Pete was dating or hanging out with Kim Kardashian. So I do think the good news is we're not sending Kanye to space. It's just Pete Davidson. I don't know if that's going to make Kanye happy or angry. Like, if something happens to that spaceship, though, we all know who's to blame, right?
I'm not giving that any energy. I rock with Pete Davidson. I think dude's he's mad chill. I like it when he's on SNL. I somewhat enjoy his comedy. I think my issue, and I'm kind of upset he keeps getting so much attention because that's it's allowing Kanye to have something to focus on other than his own crap. So I think that's not fair. I had to defend my beliefs on Kanye with my son this weekend because he's like, yo, Dad, you got a lot of hate. I said, I don't hate him. My issue with Kanye is, as a father, I can't co-sign on what he's doing. He's saying his family's very important, but he's straight up like making his family life super miserable. Right. So I can't co-sign to that. And yes, he's done a few good songs that I like. And I watched the Kanye documentary on Netflix, and they should have stopped it at episode 2. Because once they got to episode 3, it was all the things that support my feelings about Kanye. It's like, yo, you're feeling yourself. And ironically, and you can play the tapes because it's out there. Remember what I told Christian? You can't believe your own press?
Yeah.
If you haven't seen this documentary, Pharrell tells him the same thing. No matter how good people tell you are, you got to doubt yourself. And if he probably would have stuck with that mantra and just like it, and I believe that no matter how much people hype you up, you got to keep your head out of the clouds. But anyway, so Pete, do your thing. I did see a low-key headline that Kim's really like digging dude. So that's great. My thing as a parent is that I've been divorced, so I know what it's like. The most important thing is remain being a good father for your kids, because what happens 10, 15 years down the road, there are tapes. And the tapes
I was just going to say, like, the internet lasts forever in that regard, right? Like, nothing on the internet goes away, and your kids are going to have full access to everything that's gone down since you guys split up. So,
and they will form an opinion of you that you're not going to be able to take. So
and that you probably won't appreciate.
Anyway, next. The Florida Senate actually passes the Do Not Say Gay bill, and it's now on its way to Governor DeSantis's desk. The weird thing about this story is that there's actually it's another marketing faux pas on the opponents of a position. Mm-hmm. The thing about the bill that makes it a different conversation is that it's from kindergarten till 3rd grade, where these gender conversations shouldn't happen. As a parent on the sideline, I kind of agree, right? And I'm not even talking about the details of the bill, where like there's this ancillary stuff that can happen to teachers. I just think that it's like we've gotten so divisive that we can't take out the good points from the bad points. I still think that if that's an issue, it should be at a local level. Yeah. But I understand the parts of the bill I actually read, but that's the part that's being missed in the overall conversation. It's all people are saying is a don't say gay bill, with the exception of it's predominantly focused on kindergarten to 3rd grade, which is not. I mean, and you can finesse that bill to where it's not so divisive later on if they would have had discussion about it. but the headline on the bill is kind of garbage. So,
well, and I think, ultimately, I think it's a marketing failure on both sides, right?
Right.
Ultimately, because it does come across as this, like, we don't want the idea of gay, right, of homosexuality to even be like a thought until 4th grade, essentially, right?
But that part has never been discussed in the news.
Right.
That's
No, and I understand that, but what I think, there's several pieces of it, and yeah, this is probably like worthy of a longer discussion as we go down the road, but and as it gets passed by DeSantis, maybe we can have more of a deep dive on this. But I think ultimately you've got at the state level trying to mandate what can and can't be said in classrooms, right? And I don't know. There's other parts of it, like the required quote unquote outing of students to their parents and family members if they confide in a teacher. There's just some things that I think are not being thought through very well in terms of what the potential outcomes and ramifications are. Right. I mean, I think, for example, if you've got a 2nd grade student who has two gay parents, like, they're not allowed to discuss that in any way, shape, or form in the classroom, right? Like,
well, the vagueness of third party in the language is kind of disturbing, right? So third party could be a student reporting to a teacher or somebody walking in the hallway. So, and I'm not sitting here to try to argue the merits of it. I am saying that it's another instance of we hyperpolarize an issue. But we we cherry pick the things that we want to be upset about.
That's what I was just going to say. It's like it's a cherry picking to manufacture outrage on either side, right? And I keep seeing this especially on like Twitter lately, where people are finding ways to contort what actually happened to fit the narrative that they want. So, like, for example, the State of the Union address, right, last week, and Biden is talking about having to leave Afghanistan, and Lauren Boebert shouts out 13 of them, talking about the soldiers that died during the evacuation, right? And everybody got all upset because they were like, she interrupted and heckled him while he's talking about his dead son. And I'm like, dude hadn't even said anything about his dead son yet. So I mean, like, I get it. It was immediately before. Do I think that heckling during the State of the Union is appropriate? No, I don't. But we can't sit here and be like, she knew he was going to talk about his dead son next. That's, like, no, that wasn't. It's again, like, it's cherry picking, it's contorting the facts in order to create a narrative that fits what you want, right? To get people upset. And then you get a bunch of I can't believe, let's get Lauren Boebert. Like, we got a million other reasons to not like this woman. Why do we have to manufacture more of them? And what's frustrating, we talked about this a little bit before, but it's like, Twitter is not a place to have a conversation. It's a place to shout what you want the rest of the world to hear, because every single time I saw something about that, I commented, I was like, look, I don't agree with heckling, but let's be honest about what happened here. Like, watch the video, she says it, and then he says, for instance, my son Bo, right? Like, yes, I get, like, but we can't. They did the same thing with Trump back in like 2015, 2016, where they kept, it was bad enough as it was, but when they realized that people weren't going to vote against him for the stuff that he was saying, they're like, well, let's just start making it up. And it's like, you guys, you're not helping anything. You're reinforcing the other narratives that come out. Oh, the media is biased and everybody is against us and all that. Like, you're proving them right in those regards, which makes it that much more difficult for us to have any sense of like moral high ground or any leg to really stand on. It's so infuriating.
Yeah, and fortunately, I didn't get to watch all the State of the Union because I was in an airport, and I missed that part. But I don't disagree. I think that we're on a slippery slope when it comes to these quote unquote debates, and I just hope that we can figure that out in a more sensible way.
That'd be nice.
But anyway, next.
So speaking of President Biden, today he announced that we are banning the import of all Russian oil and gas. This is something that President Zelensky in Ukraine has been begging for for over a week now because despite all of the other sanctions that have been imposed worldwide on Russia, the majority of their federal funding comes from the sale and export of oil and gas. Like 40% of their federal budget is funded by that. And as gas prices have crept up, guess what Russia's been doing? Increasing the price of their gas. So like they've been making more money off of this in the long run, which was, I believe, part of Putin's plan all along was like, the world's way too dependent on us to not keep exporting gas. So I'm curious to kind of see where things go from here. That whole thing in Ukraine has been just an absolute atrocity so far. And I don't know what the solution is, but it's just, I'm at a point where I don't know. I'm struggling to see a way out of this that doesn't involve like World War III. So I hope it doesn't come to that, but
I don't have a solve in that. I just think that, nor do I don't think World War III is on the table. I think Putin's just desperate to kind of stay relevant in his own country, and he's definitely leading a campaign of fear and force in his own homeland. So,
do you think that the United States, I mean, if Russia, like, let's say he is successful, right, and essentially taking over all of Ukraine, he manages to capture and or kill Zelensky, and the Russian army essentially completes their invasion, and he's just like, well, you know, I said it was a peacekeeping mission, but now that we're here, the best way to keep the peace is to just incorporate Ukraine back into the USSR. Will the rest of the world just be like, well, that really sucks, but there isn't really anything we can do about it?
I think that ship has already sailed. I don't think that I don't think that's not a good look for him.
No, it's not, but I don't know that he cares.
It doesn't matter if he cares or not. I think the rest of the like NATO and the UN are ready to we're good. We're good on that.
But what does that mean?
It means Russia becomes a pariah state.
But aren't they already at that point?
No, they haven't been up until now.
But I was saying, like, right now, aren't they already at that point?
Right now, it's like two kids are fighting, right? And you're just trying to separate them.
I guess.
I think killing Zelensky for him is a bad play. He doesn't recover from that. There's no going back from that. I think that he's at a point now where he's getting closer to a point of no return. And I'm not a general, but I do believe that there are some things he can do that he can get away with, and people are like NATO and the UN will look the other way at some level.
I mean, they have so far, right? Like,
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that so the issue has always been like how he was allowed to get into Georgia and Crimea.
I totally agree with that. Like, that set the table for this, right?
Right. And I think Ukraine, it's like the second largest country in Europe. Mm-hmm. I think that sends a different message. You have countries like Finland thinking about trying to change their official international alliances. You have like those border countries like Czechoslovakia, who says they're not next, right? So there's things where it's like, I'm not a general, but I'm looking at what's not happening and thinking he hasn't reached the point of no return, basically. And you know, I pray he doesn't, and it's awful to watch. It's awful to be, to see. But I don't think he's at that point yet. I think he's at a point where he thinks he's going to negotiate and get what he wants. And I also think he's using this as a ploy to remain in power in Russia for a little bit longer.
Time will tell, ultimately, right?
Yeah, who knows? But next. This is a bit of bright and happy good news. It is on the table that Russell Wilson will be going to the Denver Broncos. And we just can't wait to say it, but you heard it here first months ago.
Yes, you did.
Months ago. And I think just to paraphrase Chris, he was basically saying like, Seattle's not his spot anymore. Like, it's just not.
Nope.
And when he said, would Russell fit in Denver? I'm like, yeah. Now, I will say this: the Seattle Seahawks are getting Noah Fant.
Yep.
A couple other people. Like Noah Fant was I don't know if I get rid of him as a tight end, and they're getting Drew Lock, and I think Drew Lock long term as a quarterback is going to be
better than Russell Wilson, probably.
Yeah. So
you're absolutely insane for saying that. Just to be clear, like that's one of the craziest things I've ever heard come out of your mouth. That Drew Lock in the long run will be a better quarterback than Russell Wilson. But again, time will tell. Yeah, I couldn't personally be happier. Not only to be right, because that feels great, but also because I was kind of tired of rooting for the Seahawks. Like, I'm not gonna lie, games on the West Coast were pain in the ass to watch. Like, Denver tends to play in better time slots. I think he'll get more visibility there. My prediction is that within the next 3 years, he wins an MVP.
If he goes to Denver, I'm saying 2 years out, and they get a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
and he'll get the MVP. So that's my call. Well, you heard it here first.
That shit again.
Yep, you heard it here first.
But yeah, that's hence all the smiles on the podcast, because finally Andre and I can root for the same team. It'll be so wonderful.
That'll be dope.
And I gotta get my Russell Wilson jersey. All right, so the last story for Quick Hits today. Our best friend, Elon Musk, running Tesla, had this lawyer guy, I don't know, chief legal counsel, I believe, for Tesla, some startup millionaire, because apparently you have to be a millionaire to start up a company these days. They're building self-driving car sensors, so like little lasers that point everywhere and attract cats to the hoods of other cars, I guess. I don't know. But so they paid $30 million to get this guy to leave Tesla last year and come over to this startup company. I don't know much beyond that. That just seems like an absurd amount of money. Like, I mean, Russell Wilson's probably not even getting paid $30 million a year. This dude, like, he got a signing bonus, essentially, of $30 million to come be the chief legal officer. As far as I know, it was one chunk. So it's a lot of quiche, as they like to say.
Makes me wonder why I didn't go to law school. I'm in the wrong business.
Yeah, you like to argue with people. You could have gotten paid $30 million to leave Elon Musk. Like,
yeah, that would be like the perfect job for me. And I would just anyway. I can only say it doesn't get any, that's a bright spot in my day. So
see, we like to end the quick hits section on some happy news for you folks.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Poor Elon.
Poor Elon. Ooh, single tear.